Hello everyone. So imagine you've got a project or an order that you're needing to create a lot of very similar items, but they all have some unique or different name or slogan on each of the individual items, like keychains or name badges. And it would be very time consuming to go in and change the text on each of those keychains or each of those name badges. So one of the new features in the latest version of xTool Studio is to do these batch jobs like this and use variables so you can make that job very easy. And I'm going to show you how you can do that in this video. And to show you, I thought it would be cool to make a project where we're making name badges. And these name badges can be used in the classroom for a teacher where they have like maybe a QR code that the teacher could scan, and this would be like their student ID. And so I thought we would just make this with a little slot for like a lanyard and put that QR code and then the name. And each badge, name badge, has a different name on it, but it also has some static text that is, maybe the school name or something like that. The QR codes are unique, so every badge has a different QR code, and that's the student ID number. So I'll show you how to do all of this using the new features in xTool Studio. And I think this is a really fun little project. And you could take this project and use it. I'll have the template up on Atom so you can download it and make it your own. But you could use this same concept to do something like add, like little characters or add some color to it. Maybe you have an M2 laser and you want to add like a colorful little character or different colored backgrounds. You can do all that with this, with the concepts that I'm going to teach you in this video. So hang in there and I'll show you how that's done. And I'll even show you how you can use an Excel file to do a large batch of items, say somewhere around 50 items or as many as you can fit in the bed of your laser. So let's get started.
So here's the project that we're shooting for. We're wanting to have a grid of name badges that are set up with a variable, and each of these will be unique for the names that we have in our list. And so if I go to set the variable, and it added one. So here you can see that the name and the QR code are a variable, and I've got those set up. And then in this table, I define what I want the values to be for all of the elements in it. And if you click on these, you can see that's the value in the text box, and you would just confirm. So you could change all of these out. All right. And so you can see there's the names, and then we can do a preview and see what it would look like filled in. So you can see we've filled in all of the name badges, and they have different QR codes. So how do you build this? So let's take a look. So the first thing we want to do is let's just put a rectangle on the canvas, and this will be the layout of our badge. And we'll make it something like, let's just do 3 inches tall, 7 inches wide. And I think it looks better if it has rounded corners, so we'll put in a 0.25 radius, and it gives it a rounded corner. And if you remember on the others, I had the little slot for like a lanyard or a clip. We'll just put that centered, and then we'll put another radius. And this one will be a little bit tighter, so we'll do 1/8 of an inch radius, so 0.125. And that rounded over those. So that was easy. That's pretty quick and simple thing to add in. So next we'll put in our text, and you want to just put in a placeholder, and it could be a longer placeholder like this so it can help with alignment. Basically, whenever you run this, you want it to you want to plan for the longest name that you're going to have, because if you don't, then you might have some different formatting, and you'll see over here on the preview that I did. So the name Candace is longer. Notice how it is scaled down smaller to fit in the area. So that's something just to keep in mind as you're building this. Plan for the larger names. So we'll put in a placeholder and we'll scale that up as large as we want it. And all you have to do is pretty simple. We'll set this to engrave. You just right click on it and click set variable, and that turns that object into a variable. You can name it. So I'm going to click in here and just put student name. Might make it easier for us to identify later on. And then we can go next and we can start building out the names that we want in this table. And I'll show you how you could import this in an Excel file in a minute. Okay, so we've got a couple of names. So this right-hand column, I'll go ahead and mention this here. So you could say that you need to process a name more than once. In other words, repeat that name in the grid that you're going to build. So if I wanted, there's 2 Chris's in the class, for example, then we just bump this up to 2. And then there would be 2 name badges with Chris. But I'm going to leave that at 1. And then we'll click confirm. And then, so that variable is all set up. The next thing we want to do is add in the QR codes. So to do that, we'll go over here to the applications. And so there is a QR code, a newer type of generator. I don't think you can use this one because it's going to import a static image. So we don't want that. We want, and I think I searched barcode. Oh, there it is right there. So the barcode / QR code generator. We'll click on that and notice you have QR code and barcode in the options there. So we'll just generate one and we'll put in some placeholder text, a QR code, and we'll use all the default settings. We'll click save, and then let's place that inside the area of the badge. All right, so next what we want to do is set it up as a variable as well. So right click, select, and then right click on it, click set variable. Now you'll see that it shows up in this table. And you can just, you'll need to change this from the data type from vector to a QR code. And then now each field will have a property that you can set. So here we go. We'll just type in there 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Confirm, that's the first one. And then this one could be 3, 6, 9, 2, 5, 8. And so on. So we could just make up, obviously you'll have legitimate values for QR codes that you're going to be using, but this is just for an example here. And that would be, in my example, this is like classroom ID badges. That could be like their student ID, and you could use that in, let's say, like an app for participation. There's a lot of options out there for that. So, all right, so we'll click that. Now that is set as a variable. Now, ultimately, we're going to use the grid array to copy these out. I don't want to do that just yet. I want to put in some static text. In other words, text that does not change on all of them. So let's say that our school's name is Independence So our school's Independence Elementary will scale that down to fit in the space that we have. And our badge is pretty good shape. So what I like to do is go ahead and select all of this, and then we'll click Group. We can close that editor for the variables. And then next, we'll go back to our apps, and then we'll go and clear this, the search, and we're going to go to the grid array. All right, so now it's just as simple as increasing the number of rows or columns to create the grid that you're wanting to create, and then we'll click Done. And now it is set up to run our project. So to be able to get back into edit individual ones, we need to ungroup, and then we'll click on our individual badge and ungroup it as well. Now I can select this individual variable, right click on it, and click Set Variable. Well, I added a few more names. All right, there we go. So we've got names, we've got QR codes. We'll go ahead and click to that we're going to render it, and this is the output. This is what it would look like if we ran this project right now. So pretty handy, very nice tool. So what if we wanted to do a large job that had like 20 or so names, and we needed to do this in an Excel spreadsheet? That way it'd be a little bit easier to deal with instead of hand typing all those in. Well, the nice thing is that they have this set up for you. So all you got to do is in this grid that we have, you can go up to the top right and click Download Template. And you'll save this to some location that is easy to find. I usually go with the Downloads folder on my computer. And with that downloaded, we'll go over to Microsoft Excel. And you can see they have some pointers in here that you need to read through all those and make sure we follow those guidelines. But we can see the headers of the columns that we already had set up, and there's the names already that I had plugged in. And let's say instead of just typing in all of these QR codes or numbers, let's say I wanted to generate some that are sequential. So I could do something like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, O, and then we'll clear these values. And then in Excel, you can actually do things like this. You can drag that down, and it will give you the option to fill the series. And now it's going to increment each of the items. So let's say you are doing asset tags and you want to increase the asset tag number for a large batch, and that way you don't have to key every one of those in. Let Excel do the work for you, and you can make this job a lot easier. So you could expand that out as far as you need it to go, and it will input all of those. So from here, all we got to do is save this file, and then we'll upload it back into xTool Studio. So just as an example, we'll go ahead and plug in some more values. We'll save this Excel. And whenever whenever we import that same Excel file, you'll see here those new values are added to the list. Then we can do our preview. And of course, we have to remember that the number of templates that we have is all that are going to fit. So be sure that the number of rows that you have match the number of templates that you have on the machine.
All right, here they are. So as always, pretty good, clean cutout, and QR code works great. I think this is a really nice project. Will work really good for any teachers or anybody that's we need to make batches of a lot of a similar item, but it has different content on it. So I hope this has helped out.